we doing other business tonight?
Any other business?
Yeah, I have something tonight.
Okay.
And I really didn't want to do this, but the last couple of months have made me aware of some information that I feel obligated to do it, unfortunately. This time I'd like to make a motion to remove Fred Weiss as chair of the Board of Supervisors for a number of items that we can discuss if anyone wants to second that.
Second.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
Yes, please. So a few meetings ago, I made a comment where I had received a phone call from a reporter saying that a supervisor had made a couple of comments on the record specific to me. One was a claim that I was having an affair on my wife with a man, which was completely unfounded and untrue. This is at the time I was I was self-isolating, dealing with pneumonia. As you can imagine, that put a lot of stress on my family. And I feel like it was a ridiculous comment that was strictly meant to do harm to an individual for no other reason than to just do harm to an individual. My wife knows this. I am not having an affair. I love her very much. And I have pictures of my two little kids behind me who I love very, very much. It's one of the most hurtful things I've ever experienced. At the same time, the same supervisor, I was made aware that same supervisor made a claim that was very similar in nature to a public comment that was made by Joe Blundy on a couple of occasions. Joe Lingle on a couple of occasions related to, I believe I was referred to as a political boss in Lower Makefield and Lower Bucks who was trying to create a system of patronage throughout the town. Now, when I hear that makes me laugh because I am probably the least political person on this board. I don't attend events. I don't donate. I don't endorse. That's just who I am. But when I hear comments like that, much like our president, I feel like those are projections for things that other people are doing. So I did a little research, and here's what I found out. In May of 2019, Supervisor Weiss and his wife, Cindy Weiss, set up a PAC called Keep LMT Blue PAC. Which was set up specifically based on the registration documents to support the LMT Board of Supervisors Democrat LMT BOS candidates just for 2019, which were Supervisors Blundy and McCartney now. Those documents, notarized in Hillsborough County, Florida, provided a lot of information that was interesting to me. Now, with reference to setting up a system of patronage or pay to play, you look at the folks that donated to this PAC. They're Vince DeLuca, Bob Dwyer, Bob Rosenthal, and Joe DeLuca. They're all the developers for Prickett Preserve. You also had a hefty donation from Cam Troilo, who we all know as a developer in Lower Makefield. Whistler Pearlstein, which is Ed Murphy's law firm that represents a lot of developers in Lower Makefield. And Joe Taylor, who is the CEO of Matrix Development, for all of you familiar with Matrix. Now, most of that money was then passed through to the Blundy McCartney for LMT Supervisors PAC to the tune of over $6,000. We heard at our meeting on Monday from Supervisor Blundy that she's never directly or indirectly accepted any contributions from any developers. Well, I just read off 6 of them, which is probably the 6th biggest in Lower Makefield, in addition to an attorney that often represents them. In addition to that, what was interesting to me is the same PAC, Keep LMT Blue, not only donated heavily to Blundy McCartney. Well, I take that back. The Blundy McCartney campaign also had a fundraiser on June 13th, 2019, which was attended by Mr. Dwyer and I believe also Mr. DeLuca, although I'm not positive about that. I've been told because I was not there. Now, in addition to that, the Keep LMT Blue PAC has donated thousands of dollars for Judy Reese for Congress, both through the PAC and through individuals such as Fred Weiss and the new PAC leader, Judith Gordon. In addition to that, another couple of members of the Weiss family have donated to Judy Reese for Congress. What's interesting about that to me, given the claims that were made against me to the media on the record, was that Saul Weiss, who was Fred Weiss's son, in 2017 was an entry-level social worker at the county, and the year after she was elected was appointed to be the Pathonetary's deputy to the tune of a 32% pay increase. I cannot sit idly by here being attacked almost on a regular basis, both publicly and behind the scenes, by so many people. The Supervisor Weiss's wife, Cindy, has sent me private Facebook messages twice. One was to sign the petition to support Wegmans, and the second time was threatening me regarding the sewer system. I've personally have endured a ridiculous amount of attacks, all of it unfounded, while at the same time, the people making these attacks are out here doing exactly what they're claiming that I'm doing while I'm doing nothing. So I can no longer sit here and support Fred Weiss as the chair of the board, someone who I ran with and I allowed to get close to my family and has made these claims against me. And furthermore, I am incredibly disappointed in Supervisor Blundy for not coming forward when asked on multiple occasions and just admitting to the fact that you took money from these people. That's just, if someone asked me, I said it. It's unfortunate, but I had to answer yes. And these, to have not only one of them, like Mr. Dwyer, but to have all of them and then some donate directly and indirectly and use the Keep L&T Blue Pack to push the money through. It's beyond the pale. And I can no longer support this going forward, in addition to everything else that's going on this year. Those are my comments.
Well, those are interesting comments. How you went from your personal attacks from somebody other than me to a PAC which I helped start but left within a month.
All those donations were made during your time as the head of the PAC, Dr. Weiss.
Actually, I think a few were, but most were not. I don't even know how much was collected, but I do know from a discussion with my lovely wife that Mr. McCartney and Miss Blundy got less than 10%, or about 10% of all that was collected from the PAC. The PAC that I know of gave money to not only Judy Reese's campaign, but various Democratic candidates in the area, including Perry Warren, Corinne Kreinagel, and Judy Reese, and gave a bulk of the money to Buck's victory in the Bucks County Democratic Committee. That's what I know. I might be a little off on the percentages, but the PAC can do whatever it wants. I only had a very slight hand in forming it, but Ms. Gordon was kind enough to run with it after, when she was asked, and I really had nothing to do with it afterwards. As far as personal attacks on you, I've never made any in public, never made any in private. I haven't talked to you other than at meetings since February of this year. Never had any words of personal disagreement. I'm a little surprised that you were making these comments. How a PAC donates their money is its business, and if you don't like it, that's okay. It has nothing to do with me being the chair of this board. And however, I serve at the discretion of the majority of the board. I would be happy to step down as the chair at any time if the majority of the board feels that it's necessary. So I'm going to cut off any further discussion because it's really not necessary, and I will retain counsel on slander if anybody decides to make another comment against me or my wife at this point. So I will call it to a vote. All those in favor of removing me as chair, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Mr. Chula, is he allowed to cut off supervisor comments?
You can make comments, but understand I will retain counsel, and you will be subject to slander if you open your mouth and say something that's blatantly false. So unless
It
you
would be anybody can make a comment. There's now been an indication of potential litigation, so I would caution anybody who makes any further statements about that. Just saying that right now. I'm not going to say whether I believe litigation is appropriate or anything. I'm not making a comment or interpretation about that, but the statement's been made, so I just would caution anybody going further. I'm not saying you can't. Just remember what's been said.
Hey, Mr. Trullo, if I can ask a quick question. What is the level of threshold upon which someone can be sued for slander if they're a public official? You're testing me with my knowledge from my graduation from law school in 1983, and the law has changed quite a bit since then. It is a higher standard for public officials.
As long as it relates to the nature of the office.
Right. Yeah. So there's all kinds of permutations from that have to be reviewed. And for me to give an off-the-cuff answer on that would be unfair to you and anybody else asking that question.
not going further, I will say this will go past this conversation and this discussion.
So if any of the other three supervisors want to make comments, they can. Again, keep in mind what's been said so far.
So I will say this, and I will try to hold my tongue. I guess I should have seen what was coming when you somehow made Joe Lingle Joe Blundy, but whatever. Dan, did I get money from a PAC? Did our campaign get money from a PAC? It did. John, I've never looked into your PAC, but you donated, so maybe I should pull up all of that and other PACs that I got money from. So I'm going to stick with what I've said, what I've always said. Dan, I think one of the comments you said was that the bulk of the money, and then Fred said something about 10%. So I'm not even going to touch that because I've never looked at that information before. But I find it disingenuous at best for you to make this motion and then somehow drag me and James, Joe Lingle, my husband. I don't even know what's going on. So since none of that theoretically is germane to the motion you made, I'm just going to leave it right there.
No, I would respond that the Keep LMT Blue PAC made 3 contributions to the Blundy McCartney for LMT Supervisors PAC, totaling $6,250. In addition to that, those individuals...
What does this have to do with your motion? Because if you want to talk about campaigns, I guess we can do that. But I just...
So,
all right, look, there's been a motion, there's been a second.
Can I just make a quick comment on this?
Go ahead, James.
I just want to, Dan, two quick things. I just want to clarify, who exactly are you accusing of saying that you had an affair with a male? Because I don't think you ever actually said that.
I think it's me. I think he said it's me.
I did not say it's you.
He wants to remove Fred, but I think he said it's me.
I did not say it was you, Ms. Blundy. The reporter called me and said that Dr. Weiss, I apologize, said on the record those 2 accusations. One, that I was, quote unquote, friends with benefits with David Berea of Yardley Borough, and at the same time was trying to set up a system of patronage in Lower Makefield Township.
Okay, and then my second question.
That was the accusation made by the reporter.
Okay.
Since we have no proof of any of that, and I deny it, we'll go forward. Go ahead, James.
And then my second question is, are you insinuating that my decision-making process while sitting on this board was skewed by any of the developers or the attorneys that were involved with Cricket?
What I'm saying is there are several. What I'm saying is this. When the question was asked by multiple people, both last year and just a few days ago, the response was that neither you nor Ms. Blundy had ever accepted money from any developers or vendors for that matter. Those statements have been made.
So let's go one.
The record shows otherwise, that all of those developers and additional vendors have made contributions to Keep LMT Blue PAC that were then submitted to the Blondie McCartney for LMT supervisor. I'm not saying that it influenced your decision in any way. I'm just saying that's what the notarized paperwork shows.
You're also making the assumption that Ms. Blondie and Mr. McCartney knows where the PAC donations came from, which that's up to them. And if they say they didn't know, they didn't know. I gave you the information.
For the record, I didn't know.
I gave you the information that I know. So, anything else that you're saying other than being a circular argument, is it relevant to your motion? I don't know.
And I'll just try to say this quick. This came up last year about the fundraiser. I think John had somebody ask the question at public comment. I said it then. I said it. I'll say it again. There were many people at that fundraiser who did not contribute. DeLuca, Dwyer, John, Dan, you said you were going to come, but you got caught up at a meeting. You hadn't contributed, but you would have been welcomed, just as other people were whose names are currently escaping me. That remains the same today as it was last year. Again, with PACs, I think that's enough.
I think Supervisor Blondie, you seem to be bringing me into this a lot. The issue here isn't whether you did or did not accept the money or that it was laundered through another PAC. That's sort of a common fundraising practice. The challenge here is that you just kind of avoided the question or denied it when the truth was very different.
I don't think that's accurate. I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
Yeah. So, and as it relates to, my personal PAC, Friends of John B. Lewis, I actually filed all with the state. So you can look online at any time and get that. The PAC that Supervisor Grenier is talking about actually does not file with the state, files with the county. So you can't actually look it up online. So most people don't get to see the data. I kind of, that's where I'm troubled here. I think you can look it up. It's public record. Obviously, Mr. Grenier has the details.
John, I didn't mean to drag you into it. I off the top of my head, you have a PAC, and I know you contributed to the campaign. That's what I know. And I don't even know what to say at this point because you just used the word laundered, which is, so are you set? If you call somebody up and you ask their sister to give a donation so it doesn't look like someone's name, is that laundering, John? Because I'm confused as to what you're saying at this point. Laundering is a criminal word. I don't know what to say.
It basically is. And they can, it's a free country. Anybody can say what they want. There's no proof of any of this. It's public record is public record. Anybody can look it up. You can make any assumptions you wish. Right. And I stand by what I say. I have no problems with my actions. What I say to reporters, if a reporter said something of that nature to you and they wish to back it up without following up, they can print a story that I said something like that, and I'll deal with it. But I can tell you, Dan, that whoever that reporter was, he or she, it didn't come from me. But I appreciate what you said, and I will act accordingly towards you in the future. Now, Monica, because a motion was made and duly seconded, and we've had supervisor comment, is there any public comment?
Yes, Robert is on the line.
Go ahead, Robert. Robert, unmute yourself.
Robert, if you're having trouble, press *6.
I just did that. Can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Robert Abrams, Lower Makefield Township. After what was just said, and I sit here, and I identified over $17 million that the residents here may have been shortchanged on deals we could have done better on. And no less than $250,000 a year moving forward. And there have been many statements made about, even on Facebook, that Lower Makefield is for sale, that I just listened to, not that Lower Makefield's for sale, Lower Makefield was purchased. Now the question becomes, what monies did Aqua American contribute, and contribute to who? Because we already know Mr. DeLuca, for his overlay, him and his buddies contributed immensely and contributed to the 3 that voted for it. Isn't that interesting? The chair and the 2 puppy dogs on a leash all got the money. There's a problem with every deal that went down here since this board's been seated, and it needs to be looked into. Thank you. Very informative. Thank you, Mr. Granier. Have a good night. Thank you for being honest.
Unfortunately, Mr. Grenier is being less than honest, in my opinion. And number 2, I've received nothing from Mr. DeLuca or his group. And
are you calling me a liar?
No,
I'm reading off of notarized
your,
documents. You
I'm
just
calling the information that you stated to be false.
I can post all of it online if you'd like to see the legal documents, Fred. None of it is false.
If you want to post claims that somebody made a claim that you're gay, that's up to you. But I've never made such an insinuation.
I'm not speaking about my sexual orientation. I'm speaking about
I'm not interested.
So-called claims about the donations and the PACs. That is all public information that can be got at the county.
You can post whatever you want. But I ran in 2017. I got a $500 donation from Equus, from Mr. Dwyer's group, which you benefited from in some part. And
I made that public at the last meeting.
And so did I on
multiple occasions.
So, you know, you can post whatever you want, but understand that there's a limit to the slander in a public official.
I understand that very well from my own end.
Good. Well, if you feel to retain counsel, you may. But when I retain counsel and I go back and all the other things that I can prove, then we'll talk about it. So there's no more public comment, Monica?
No further public comment.
Okay. We'll ask the question. All those in favor of removing me as chair signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no.
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 Motion fails, 3-2. Thank you very much. Okay. And I will say to Mr. Abrams, if he's still listening, that his obsession of the cell tower is kind of laughable. We have $2 million in the bank getting interest. Even if we didn't get interest, it would take over 20 years before we evened out. And who knows what the technology would be. As far as the $15 million on the table for the sewers, that was vetted and re-vetted and triple vetted. And John Lewis is being more than disingenuous when he says that we had that thing that came at the last minute as an offer. No, Mr. Lewis, I'm talking, and I'm not going to reclaim your time. How dare you and Mr. Grenier, your puppet.
Excuse me?
You heard me. You heard me. I can go back to the old school and back when LeBron Smith was around and all that kind of BS. How dare you bring up lies about me talking to you? You better have that in print, buddy, because I could be coming to you with an attorney. Mr. Lewis, we've had conversations going back to my campaign about joint authorities. You better think about that before you make any more comments about Bucks County Water and Sewer. I'm not going to talk about it. You've had your chance. You just created an adversary on this board. I don't know how you guys are going to go forward, but my support for your agenda is going to take a lot of convincing to me this going on. And I don't mind saying that to the public. I don't know what you guys think that you can win by attacking me or my wife, but that is strictly crossing a line. And I apologize to my colleagues to have to put up with this, for all they want to do is make this township, as I do, a better place. It's one thing to be in opposition to an idea and vote accordingly, but to attack individuals on their character, that is not only against the handbook of a supervisor of a second-class township, it's against the code of a second-class township. And I am very disappointed for both of you. Now, I go back to